Cool. Well, let's get started. I know it looks like Kathleen might be adding some other people in here, which is awesome. Um, so one of the things that I wanted to start off by talking about, and I put it in the Facebook message, was just two different things. And then we'll also talk, somebody had reached out about listings and wanting to have just a conversation around listing, everything listing, checklists, marketing, etc. So we'll make sure to talk about that too. And I appreciate for people sending in feedback of things they wanted to talk about. So the first thing was around team advances. And I know not everybody, or team advances or team retreats, I know not everybody is necessarily like in charge of doing things like that for their organization. So I wanted to take a little pulse check first. How many of us are involved in planning team retreats, team advances, whether it's planning for the following year or if it's planning for like quarterly ones? What does that look like for your teams? So maybe just even like raising your hand or putting it in the chat if that's something you're involved in. Okay. Jessica, do you guys do anything like that? Not really.
No, I usually about November, I bounce some ideas off to Brad and he's like, oh, I already know what we're doing next year. I'm like, great. Would you like to fill in your admin? That'd be great.
Amanda, so what I'm referring to is oftentimes teams will have a meeting, a business planning meeting to talk about what their plan is for the following year. So it's an opportunity for teams to be able to talk about maybe what like their theme is for the year. Or I know some organizations will pick a book. Let's say they'll pick a book that's part of their theme, and their team is going to read the book and have their whole year be about that theme. So an example of this would be a good friend of mine. They run a business out of it's the Holt Group. So I'm trying to think. They're out of Missouri, I think. They one year did a whole theme around the book Be My Guest. Be My Guest, which is a book around the way that Disney operates. And so everything throughout the entire year, yep, there it is, Jessica. Yep, if I was in the office, I'd have it next to me too. Our team read it one year as well. It's a very good book, but it's talking about like customer experience and all the like little detail things that they do to create a really impactful customer experience. So they'll have that book is the theme for the entire year. So in every team meeting, everything that they're doing, somehow that book and the theme of that book is weaved into what their team is looking to accomplish that year. So anyway, so a lot of teams will get together to have a plan around, all right, what are we going to do for our 36 touch or our marketing for 2025, for example? Or what are we going to do heading into 2025 when it comes to lead gen? What are our strategies? This is where people and teams are putting together a full business plan of a 1-3-5. So the one goal, the three priorities, and all the strategies to help them get to their goal. They're doing that as a team and basically like launching it to their team. And when I say team, I'm not necessarily, it could just be an agent. I mean, an agent can have a plan like this. It could be a team that has an agent and an ops person. It could be a team that has 40 people on it. I mean, it's going to look different for every organization, um, but it sounds like that's not really something that this group has done or is doing currently. So I don't really want to spend a lot of time on it then, because that's not, it sounds like it wouldn't really be valuable in terms of like having a discussion around it. Does that sound pretty fair? Seems like, okay. Well, just so people on the call know, if that is something like Amanda, if you guys start to look to do something like that as a team, I'm happy to talk through examples of things that our team has done, examples that I have from other groups of things that they've done to lead a really successful team retreat or team advance. So if there's anything that I can send over to be helpful in the future, I'm very happy to do that. So, all right. Well, moving on for the sake of time, Pi Day. So how many people are plugging into Pi Day this year?
We're doing ours adjacent, not with the market center, just the following Tuesday.
Okay, great. That's awesome. Nice. Okay. Um, so one of the things that I wanted to talk about on here really quick was just some different strategies that people are using to use Pi Day to communicate with your database. And I have my playbook here, so I'm just going to pull it up and I'll put a link to it in the chat. And I'll put it on social media as well for people to grab if that's helpful. But inside of this playbook, the reason that I put this together is this is for our team. So obviously there's probably some things in here that you'll have to update to make it fit for your organization, like links and things like that. But the purpose behind the playbook is so that on our team, when we launch this, it's very easy for our team to plug into using it. So my thought process behind creating it is, how do I make this so easy to plug into for our agents? They don't have to think about it. They don't have to think about what they're going to text. They don't need to think about what to say. It's all right in here already. So let me grab this quick and put it in the chat. But what's everybody's plan around Pi Day right now in terms of the people that said they were plugging into it? Like, what are some things that you're going to be doing to communicate this to your database? What's worked for you in the past? I just want to hear a little bit about what's working right now.
So one of the things that I'm actually doing different for our Pi Day this year, seeing as I had no playbook whatsoever from my previous predecessors to work off of,
Yeah.
instead of having an email just like going out during the smart plan, I actually put the body of that email in like a graphic. So it's shiny, it's bright, it brings attention to its SRGs, Pi Day, and happy hour. Because that was one thing that was missing on a lot of the graphics, is that a lot of people were reaching out to Brad going like, are we doing the happy hour this year? Are we just doing pies? So I didn't note that. So this year I'm just making it as a graphic itself with a link underneath.
Yep.
So it just is that much more noticeable. Like, hey, this is a thing. Read this section in order to find out what's going on. And then just pre-writing like all of the like having my people reach out to whomever they're inviting for this one, like, here's the exact text that I want you to send them or that you should talk to them about. Here
Yep.
you go. Here's the
Yep.
link for the sign, making it as simple as possible and clearly directing them what I need them to do and by what day.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, something I was talking about with another group of people from across the country that they do something similar around Thanksgiving timeframe. They were feeling really frustrated. And the reason I bring this here is because I feel like this will probably resonate with a lot of people. They were feeling frustrated because they were putting together these playbooks and they had all of the suggested language that they wanted their team to use. Here's the text message script. Here's the smart plan that's in command. Here's all of this stuff. And still people weren't taking action. And yet if you didn't have that information put together, the argument would be like, well, we don't know what to say. We don't know like what link to use or something like that. And something that we changed actually for our Pictures in the Park event was our team has relied so heavily on operations to get the word out about these events, which is great. Leverage is great. But leverage isn't great unless like the agents are still doing the things that they need to be doing to communicate with their people. And the point behind an event is for them to give them a reason to call their people. Like that's literally the reason. The reason is not because we just want to spend a bunch of money on pies and give away Costco pies. Like we want to give you a reason to call your people. That's not about real estate, but then obviously you're taking mind share and you can talk about real estate, etc. But um so in the past we would like launch all of our events. So I would have these playbooks. We would launch our events on social media and via email. And what we found is that like it was kind of creating this culture where the agents didn't have to make any calls. They didn't have to text anybody because we were emailing people on their behalf and like most of that was being done for them. And so we were like, okay, so for Pictures in the Park, this was a couple weeks ago, instead of actually launching everything via email and doing all of the work operationally for the team, we decided to actually have, before we did all of that, the agents actually had to call their people. So we had three different kind of like call times, if you will, where our agents were coming in and they were calling, texting, messaging their people about our pictures in the park event before we launched it to everyone. And it like basically required them to put in the work to get their people to RSVP. And we're going to do the same thing for Pi Day, because it's way too easy to just rely on like this email about Pi Day to go out to our people. The point of the email is to help support the efforts that they should be doing as salespeople to reach out to their people. So it's not to take the place of, it's to support it. So it's just, I wanted to share that because I feel like that that idea has come up quite a bit in different masterminds that I've had the privilege to be a part of. And so that change for us, I feel like made a big difference. And so we're going to carry that moving forward with all of the events that we have, that we make the agents do parts first. And then we have a launch date that we launch it on social media and via email. So
I've got a quick question. So
yeah.
we're with North Shore. And in the last few years, we've gotten the pies and we've done it out of North Shore on Wednesday. This year, we're Nixon Wednesday because it's too hard. People are trying to get ready, including myself, prepare for Thursday. So we're going to do it Tuesday. Do you all do it at your New Berlin office or Tosa office or North Shore office, or do you do it in another venue? Because I know that you mentioned that you make it into a happy hour too, whereas we've just had people sit at two different offices, North Shore and Tosa, and because we've got clients from both sides of town. So it tends to be a long afternoon waiting, for if we do it from noon to 6 or 2 to 4 or whatever. I mean, it's a long time to just sit and wait. Do you guys have any other suggestions for us?
Yeah, so ours is Simplified Realty Group. We're out of the Southwest office, but the Southwest office themselves does theirs on Saturday. It used to be on the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. We still do ours the Tuesday before Thanksgiving at the New Berlin Ale House, which is right next door. So that way we can make use of their happy hour, their bar area, that sort of thing. People get a free drink ticket, they can come in, get their pie, they can go, or they can come chill or whatever. And we have a very limited, instead of like a noon to 6, we only do 3 to 7. Because that's when most people are going to be getting off of work. They can quickly stop by on their way home from work or from picking up kids from school or whatever, quickly pick up that pie. If they want to stay, great, it's their opportunity. If not, no pressure. We know it's a big week. Have a great day. It was great to see you. We're so excited. We want to hear more about those kitchen updates that you did. Please send us pictures so we can put them on our Facebook, etc. Love you. We'll talk to you later. Because we know it's a busy week.
I love that. Yeah. No, and I feel that's a great question though, Kim. So our team used to have it used to be our team did this by itself. So our real estate team, Lifetime Realty Group, we did our own Pi Day. I started with the team in 2019, so my understanding of Pi Day is pretty limited in terms of what it used to be. But we would do it on the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, and we sat at the office. People came and picked up pies. It was great. And then 2020 is what really changed things, and we actually created a Pi Day for the entire office. And so we did it the Tuesday before. Costco told us we couldn't do that anymore because we were ordering too many pies, and they just, like, numbers wise, couldn't keep up. Like, they couldn't make 1,300 pies and have pies in the store and have pies for other people that had some bigger orders. So we needed to make a change. So now we are doing it on the Saturday before. And I'm trying to think here, Kathleen, have we seen any numbers, like a difference in numbers? For us, no, with RSVPs, we didn't see a change in numbers in terms of like the number of people that came to pick up a pie. I always remind myself that like the event is great, but it's not the point. Like the point is what you're doing beforehand to get in touch with the people that know, like, and trust you. It's all the efforts that you're doing to stay in touch with those people. It's not really about the pie. So the pie part is great because you get to see them in person, and like it's good to see them. But yeah, to your point, Kathleen, it's like it really didn't matter which day it was. When we made the switch, people were like, oh, that's kind of far away from Thanksgiving. And our whole thing was like, you can freeze these pies.
Yeah,
You
because
can
that's
freeze
that's the
them
concern, because we have given pies out on that Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and we'll pick them up that morning, and there some of the pumpkin pies have already started getting moldy. So, then what do you do? I mean, because
right.
they're making them ahead of time also.
Yes. Yep. Yep. We encourage people to freeze them. We were like, you can freeze them, or I mean, truthfully, like the other thing that Scott and I were talking about not that long ago was like not even necessarily making it about a Thanksgiving pie. Like this is just a pie to say thank you
Yeah,
around Thanksgiving. Like if you're needing this for Thanksgiving, probably pop it in your freezer.
right.
But if if this is just a way of us to say thank you, and maybe you want to enjoy it that weekend before Thanksgiving or while you're cooking or whatever, but sort of just changing the narrative around it because we couldn't do it on that Tuesday. But I feel like
And
the dates are hard because truthfully, even if we did it on that Tuesday, people would be like, well, I can't get there. I'm working. Or
Yeah.
people would be like, oh, I'm traveling. Or, it's like we've heard all the reasons. And again, it's like, I don't really care. It's not about when they can come pick up a pie, that's great. But again, it's more about the communication and the mind share and the ability for our agents to call their people to say, hey, thanks for being in my world. Thank you for how you helped me this year. And you know what I mean? And
yeah,
the pie is like the avenue to get there, the vehicle to get there. So yeah.
I know one of the previous teams that I was on, we did the Pi Day for the Milwaukee area, and then for our Racine, Walworth, Kenosha County people, we did Kringles. So we kind of basically did a double Pi Day, and that got to be be a bit much.
Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, we had for I think it was 2020. Jackie on our team, one of the agents on our team, she's really big on delivering her pies. So not for everybody, but like she would come and take her like favorite people, if you will, or some of her favorite people, and she would grab the different flavored pies that they ordered, and then she would actually go hand deliver them to those people. And that was her way of saying hi to them and spending a little bit more time, maybe even going into their home potentially or whatever. So I feel like there's just other kind of creative ways that you could get the pie in people's hands that doesn't necessarily mean that they're coming to pick it up from you, maybe. And I also know at a certain point that's not scalable either. So it's sort of like picking and choosing what makes the most sense in terms of how you're spending your time too. So good. Any other questions about Pi Day or how to be effective with it or how to make the most of it? Or maybe it's not even necessarily Pi Day. Maybe you're doing a different event at kind of near the end of the year. I know the end of the year tends to be a bigger time when people are doing some sort of client thank you party, whether it's like cookies with Santa or something like that. How are we feeling about any of those events that we have coming up? If we have anything like that coming up, I should say.
We don't have anything, but I've just noticed the last couple of years that we've done events, we just don't get very large turnout. And my husband's always saying, well, maybe we should rent a theater. I'm like, well, I don't want to rent a theater if we're only going to have 5 people there. I mean, and he says, well, it's not quantity, it's quality. But, it seems like a lot of other teams have such great success with doing dates in the park, portraits in the park,
Mhm.
whatever, something. We tried giving away Packer tickets the last couple of years, and for calling in or stopping in or whatever, and we just don't get a lot of feedback. We get enough to give away the tickets, but it's just kind of like a wah wah. So I don't know
Mhm.
if we're doing something wrong, if it's just our database, just, and it's hard because we have a lot of people that are non-drinkers. So it's hard to have things in a bar because
Yep.
you don't want to sway somebody who's not drinking to come into a bar.
Yep. Yep. No,
No,
definitely. I mean, something you might think about is like maybe even reaching out to all of your people and asking them what they would see value in, like what kind of event they would see value in, like versus trying to guess different events, maybe you just survey them and ask like, hey,
Yep.
heading into 2025, we're looking to I'm just speaking theoretically, we're trying to do 2 client events this coming year, and we want to do events that really adds value back to you as a thank you, or whatever the purpose of the event is. And maybe list out 4 or 5 different things and see which ones people tend to like the most. Um, just to see versus guessing or assuming, or
Right.
you know what I mean? Because that can also help in terms of understanding, like, oh, a lot of people wanted a family event, so we've got a lot of families in our database, or maybe we have a lot of like single people in our database, so like going to a pumpkin farm isn't, or like a kid movie night isn't super exciting for people that don't have kids, or like just thinking about different things of being able to like target your people and best serve your people.
Sure. Okay.
One of the things that I had in my playbook last year that actually was really, really good was for everybody who actually signed up for Pi Day. I had another smart plan that launched the day after Pi Day, where it was, hey, here's a, thank you for coming. Here's a Google form. Tell us how we did. What did you like about this event? What keeps you coming back to this event? Is there anything that you want to see us do in the future? And honestly, the feedback from our people was, this is fine. We're great with this. If you want to do more, fantastic, but we're fine with just Pi Day.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, that's awesome. And keep in mind too, like I feel like a lot of times with events like this, I mean, obviously the only thing that we have to resort back to is our own experience. So I want to share a little story because I think it might even help to like bring some awareness to this too. So Scott Kloss was helped my husband and I buy our first home. And he's like a friend of ours. My husband has known him for quite some time. So we know him, right? He helps us buy our house. And then we see him periodically throughout the summer and stuff like that at like friend get-togethers and stuff. But he would start calling us about like different events they were doing. Like they were doing like a movie night or something, and he'd call and like leave us a voicemail. And I remember saying to my husband, Chris, I'm like, what is that? What is he even inviting us to? Like, I didn't even really understand it. We would get the emails and stuff. And I mean, at the time we both were like, I'm good. I'm not interested in that. So we would just delete it. We'd never really respond or anything. And then he did like, I don't know, it might have been like a Packer giveaway, some kind of ticket giveaway, kind of like you mentioned, Kim. And I think he reached out to Chris about it directly. So Chris posted on social media like a picture holding a football that they gave out to everybody. And they picked us to win these Packer tickets. But come to find out, I think we were the only people that actually did it. Like whatever it was that they needed us to do, it was like to hold up a picture of like the Packer or the ball that they gave us and post it on social media. Anyways, um, but that's like the only thing that we ever plugged into. And thinking about it now, but like Scott always called. He always called and he always texts us about those events. And I always go back to the idea that he maintained mind share with Chris and I. Now, granted, he's a friend of ours too, but like obviously we have lots of friends at the time that were real estate agents. We were getting their Milwaukee Brewer magnets and Packer schedules and things like that, but none of them were calling us. They weren't inviting us to different things. We didn't go to those things. But I mean, I remember him calling, and I remember saying to Chris, why is he calling us? Like, but it's like, again, it was mind share. So just something to think about, that it's not necessarily always about the event, but it's giving you a reason to call your people. So
Okay.
giving you a reason to like stay in touch with them, that's not specifically like, hey, do you want to buy something? You want to buy a house? You want to sell a house? Like it's actually giving you like you're giving value to them without asking for anything in return, which tends to be an easier conversation, I would say. So
All right, thanks.
yeah, but worth it to survey your people. I mean, I think that's a really good point in general of like even asking them how you could better serve them. Even if they're not looking for something right now, buying and selling or whatever, but like what kind of things would help them, because you probably have a ton of resources that could help your people in terms of vendors that they don't even know exist to help them with their bathroom, or if something happens in their house and it's an emergency, like you have contacts for them. Like maybe they want vendor contacts, maybe they need a connection to somebody for insurance, or like different things like that, that you could help provide value to them that has nothing to do with real estate. So cool. Um, okay. So then the next thing is that I had somebody had reached out with a couple different questions, and I feel like this group is probably perfect to be able to talk to about these questions. So one of them was the role of a listing manager. What does that look like? What does a listing manager look like? What do they do for an organization? What is a pre-listing process? What role does ops take in that? And then also what happens at a listing appointment, and how can operations support basically what's happening? So I'd love to hear from people on the call, like what's your involvement right now in on the listing side? How are you as an operations person helping to support the agents and your team currently?
Well, our daughter Katie does more of that operational end of it. She's
Mhm.
been an asset since she decided to join our team. Um, she she's got a whiteboard that, that Google sheet that she keeps track of every listing we have, when they're going to be closing, just and what the sale price is, what the offer price was, just so that our listing agent and our buyer agents know exactly what's going on, how much we're putting out there, how well they're doing, or what they need to step up with. So that's something that we have with part of our weekly meetings. And she's still, it's hard to rein them in sometimes, as you all know, trying to get the data from them when we have a listing. So she's been putting a playbook together for them to say, this is what I need when I need it, please take care of this. So she's been it's like reining in cats. It's just kind of hard to keep even though they know
Mhm.
what they need to do, they don't always follow it. So
Mhm.
she's not on today, but she's the one that takes care of most of that.
Okay.
So with Simplified, we don't have specifically a listing agent or a buyer's agent. Everyone takes care of their transactions, their people, regardless of what that looks like. So everybody does their own listings as well. So when I have it set up as far as, okay, when they have a new listing that's coming up, they let me know, okay, what's the address? Here's what we're looking like for photos. I dropped the link for our Google spreadsheet that I created for them to fill out. Like if it's a house that's never been listed before, I don't know what's in that house. They're the ones that are going to it. So I need
Mhm.
them to give me the information. Otherwise, I'll go to previous listings and get the information from there. But I also ensure that before we go live, I follow up with that listing agent going, I need you to check over this to make sure the stuff is still here that's correct. Have they taken out a bathroom? Have they put in hardwood flooring? All of that happy jazz. Just that way that way I know I'm putting in the information in correctly and they're not going to get fined. So that's the pre-listing, so to speak. I'll take care of the input and everything. One of the new things that we're starting up is we have these uh, listing folders. There's a little sheet in there like, hey, sellers, before we get ready for closing or whatever, go through, as you're going through your paperwork, find all your user manuals for your appliances that are staying, your mechanicals, all that stuff, the garage door opener, the keyless entry. Put it in this folder here. And then there's also a sheet as far as, okay, here's about how old these things are. And I have, like on the back, I have as far as like, here's the closest pharmacy, here's the closest urgent care, here's the best pizza place. So that way the new buyers kind of have at least a little bit of a springboard to start off with.
Jessica, let me ask you a question. Do you feel like you or the team would benefit if you went on those listing appointments?
I don't know, because majority of the time it's happening last minute. And when you've got 5 agents that are all doing listing appointments, sometimes it won't necessarily overlap as well. So, I mean, it might be useful, but I mean, it's always something that I could bring up with Brad.
So like how when I was in your roles, I didn't necessarily go on the listing appointment because like I'm not the salesperson, right? Like I'm not the one who's securing the listing, but I would definitely like go with the photographer a lot, or to the house at some point in time before we went live. And then I was the one like verifying a lot of the information for the MLS, and I was the one who was like able to walk around and lead like, oh, this is the feature of the property I really want to highlight when I do like my social media posts and when I write the public remarks in MLS. And I think it's really hard from our positions behind the desk, so to speak, to be able to really engage an audience with our listings when we've never seen them or we're seeing them through the lens of a photographer, right? So
Or
I
the
always made
listing
it
agent forgets to tell you about a certain feature that they talked about would be featured in the listing. So
Yeah.
yeah, that would be great.
Because how do you know that there's skylights or, like, is that fireplace natural or gas? Like there's all those details that we have to gather. And I love the agents and they don't do that, right? Like they don't necessarily know all that information or they don't take the time to gather that information. So I think the question's really out of like, how can we level up the ops role? And maybe it comes with getting leverage on the team, like having some things come off our plates as and forming more of that listing manager role where you are actually going to the houses and you're seeing them and are able to, I guess, elevate what the team does with those listings.
So we have 6 agents and there's no way I could go to all listing appointments. Judy has 2 or 3 a day. And then all the other agents as well. We do have a things to know about every house. Every agent has to fill that out and give it to me. And that's all the mechanics, the fireplaces, if they're there, the age of all the roof, the windows, everything is there and the agents have to fill that out because again, I've never seen the house. I don't know what's there. And they also have to take a picture when they're there at the listing presentation. They take a picture of the outside and any rooms that have unique things in them so that I can describe those. And we also have them fill out a whole update sheet and a whole what they like best about the house sheets every time they go somewhere so that they can hand all that to me. Because otherwise, and I do keep a whiteboard and we have a huge spreadsheet that all the agents have access to on Google Drive so they can fill in if the work needs to be done, if the work has been done, if there's painters, flooring, all the things that need to be done before the stager, the cleaner, the photographer need to get in there. It has to be up to date. And that's how we keep ourselves organized over here.
I was gonna say, I do the listing. Can you guys hear me? Okay. My computer's being weird. I go to all the properties and I can't imagine not being there because I have one agent that's really good about getting me the notes, but then I have some that just sometimes I don't get everything. So when I go there, I can basically visually see all the rooms, and when I label all my photos and I organize them, I go from when I walk into the house, and it helps me write the description. If I don't go on a photo appointment, like if there's one that's later at night or if I'm not around, it's amazing how it's very difficult for me to write the description because I take pretty copious notes while I'm there. I fill out a form. And it really helps me. Like, yeah, is it a natural fireplace? Is it a gas fireplace? Do they have cathedral ceiling? Sometimes you can't see that in the photos. So I like going to the photo shoots. It's probably one of my favorite things to do just because I get to see so many different homes, but then too, I'm able to then because I also do a TC role. So after the accepted offer, then I know what the client is talking about because I've been there and I pretty much already met them. So I usually tell them when I'm there, like, once you get an offer, I'm going to be the one that will be reaching out to you and, that second set of eyes. So I actually like it.
I'm curious if everybody can tell me approximately how many listings your teams do per week, per day on average, because I'm struggling with we're very high volume in the amount of listings that we do. So these additional checklists that we want to put in place are very difficult to get done in a timely fashion. So comparing like our team to other teams, I just want to be better about understanding like the numbers.
We
Bueller.
don't
I'm just
necessarily
pulling ours up.
we don't necessarily have a per day listing ratio. I mean, ours more likely, more often, we probably have 4 to 5 listings per month. With us having a Boomtown platform, a lot of our business actually comes from a buyer's standpoint. So that's where a lot of our bread and butter is. The rest of our like listings will come from our sphere is majority of where our listings come from.
We have anywhere from 6 to 12 listing appointments a week. And then obviously it varies of when they're gonna go live or start or delayed or need all the things that need to be done. But between Judy and all of our agents, there's no way. I would love to go to the houses, but there's no way if I'm gonna be able to actually get things online to be able to go visit places.
So Amanda, I just looked. I mean, for us, I think at least for us this year, the highest number from a selling side for the month, like was 12 in a month. Now that's closed, but we have a pretty small like fallout rate where like if we list it that it doesn't actually close. So probably the highest this year in a month for Dawn was probably like 12, 13, something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I struggle with these ops meetings simply because it all is just like so beautiful and bright and shiny, and I want these checklists in place. But our team, I mean, we can do 20 plus listings a week. So sometimes our listing manager is doing 5 or 6 a day. And it's because we work with a lot of investors, a lot of the properties are occupied, so she can't really go to like the photos. And on top of that, if she goes to like photos or listing appointments, those things, then she doesn't have time to put things in MLS. So I know that that's a matter of like, we're actually looking for another admin and having that leverage. But I'm sitting here and it all sounds so bright and shiny, and like in a perfect world, you can have your agents fill out these checklists. But when we have 20 plus listings a week, you don't really know where to go from there.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm really big on the fact of like, I am not a fan of things that are in theory. Like they need to work. Like it actually needs to work. And it definitely looks different depending on, to your point, the volume and what you're providing as part of your value proposition. Like as a business, it could be for a team that part of your business or your value proposition to your sellers looks different than it does for us, and vice versa. Like there could be other points of value that another organization is bringing to the table, and it's not somebody that's there at photos potentially. So, yep, yeah, totally, Jessica. Mm-hmm.
I would just
you're able to use it totally.
I would just add, like, I think it depends too on the type of agent it is. I mean, yes, you can fill out a form and then you can read the form, but I found sometimes if you're just talk to people,
or set up a time after their listing appointment to just get the information that you need, especially if it's already been in MLS before. I can get it done a lot faster than waiting for them to fill out a form and then waiting for me to read the form. It just, we go faster when we're in communication. So especially if they're driving around and doing a bunch of stuff, sometimes a phone call is a lot easier than waiting for them to fill out a Google form or something like that. So just would be something that I think it's got to work for your team, and thinking about your agents and how y'all communicate best.
Yeah, I mean, I really feel like so much of it, when I think about it, really goes back to value proposition. Like, what does your team do in terms of for your value proposition to your sellers? And then looking at, okay, what does that look like? So to your point, Amanda, if you've got that many a week, like let's say implementing something like this of having somebody at every photo shoot was part of your value proposition, that would literally be somebody's like full-time job then. Like that would be their sole job. Where like there might be another team where they might not have the number of units to like justify a position like that. So it might be like a hybrid type of role potentially too. So yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, what would you say, Amanda, when you're thinking about like the number of appointments that you guys have that your agents are going on, like where is like a gap in the system that you have right now for, or do you feel like there is a gap right now on the listing side for you guys?
I think our biggest gap is repeat clients. So with our larger investors, like one of our biggest client, they have hundreds of properties, and most of them, like I said, are tenant occupied. So the issue there is they're used to our service. They're used to our very relatively quick turnaround time, and we don't get into the properties because they're tenant occupied. A lot of times we don't get interior photos. So our listing coordinator is kind of playing a guessing game with some of them. And we are very much like fly by the seat of our pants kind of team. Like if there's a mistake on MLS, we just fix it and we move on. But with that being, or those types of clients being our biggest clients, we don't go on listing appointments for those. They send us an address, we do an MCA, we pick a list date, we do contracts, and we go. That is our bread and butter right now. With Holly transitioning back into more of the like homeowner occupants, residential families, we are having more listing appointments, and we've been better about reaching out to our sphere a little bit more regularly this year rather than last year when we transitioned into a team. So we are getting more listing appointments, but really I'd say Holly goes on maybe one a week. Melina goes on more, but she's much more actively in the field with her clients. So there aren't many listing appointments. A lot of it is very much so we get photos and we do MLS based on the photos, and that's if we have photos of the interior.
Yep. Yeah, totally. So it's almost like, at least what I'm hearing and what you're saying too, is like, it's kind of like not two different systems, but like it'd be like two different types of things in the sense of like your value proposition to your investor clients, and then to maybe not that not that they can't also do residential, but then like to your residential ones, the value proposition might look a little bit different too.
Yeah, and our team, like I said, we're working on hiring another admin to help facilitate a little bit more separation in our roles, because there's just two of us right now. And then on top of that, Holly and Santi just got a maps coach, and they're working on what it will look like to have kind of two different sects of the team of the business, so that Santi would do a lot of the investment sphere and he'd have his admin for that. They'd have shared admins, and then on top of that, Holly can focus on her families and first time home buyers, those types of things. So because we're in this very long transition period, it looks very different day to day. But for the most part, Faith, who started with us in January, she handles the listings. I jump in when help is needed, because we do have high volume, and then I handle the transactional side.
Okay.
And then many other hats, but
Yep.
yeah, a lot of our issues is just not having the information because we can't get the information. So
Mhm. Yeah, which is frustrating. I mean, and it's like, I mean, you can only work with what you have, you know, at the end of the day. I mean, obviously that sounds very simple, but it's very true. I mean, you can't, I mean, there's only so much that you can do ultimately. I mean, I love the idea of talking to the agents too. And sometimes I do feel like if that's possible, that is easier for them. That's not always like easier on the receiving end either, though. Like, I think it just depends on the way that a team operates. If it's easier for an agent after an appointment to call you and rattle off a whole bunch of stuff and you're able to take a bunch of notes, that's one thing. But it's also like if their listing appointment is at 6 o'clock at night and you know, let's say you work until 5, like, are they calling you after that? And I don't know. I mean, and I could see it evolving over time depending on the size of the team. Like if you were a smaller team, I could see how it starts off that way. And then eventually it's like, hey, I'm tired of you calling me. We're missing too many gaps. I need you to fill out this Google form, or I need you to email me, or you know, and I feel like that's how the systems are slowly basically created kind of out of pain and necessity, ultimately. So what about what does the pre-listing process look like? What does a role in ops play for that? I know I heard you talk a little bit about that too, Jessica. For us, I can share. I don't have an example here with me, but on the pre-listing side, now I will say I'm actually currently taking a training class through Glover. Taylor Kerrigan is doing, Emily's in this class too, I believe, systems of real estate. And we are looking at implementing like almost everything that Glover is sharing in this training too. So a lot of that is on the pre-listing side. So, but one of the things that we do currently on the pre-listing side is all of our agents, we have a huge like file cabinet, and all of our agents have a folder that's specifically for them in that file cabinet. And they have one on the buying side and they have one on the listing side. So they can take those with them, keep them in their car, they can, whatever they need to do, but they're bringing that on an actual listing appointment. And that has all of the materials that they need on the buying side and all the materials they need on the selling side. So that is like ready to go for them. And on operationally, at least at this point, that's really all we've done for them on the pre-listing side. That is going to be changing since we're going to be implementing some of the things that Glover is recommending. We're going to be helping to support them in a couple other smaller ways, but right now that's like the only role that ops is taking. Like, well, I guess I'm saying pre-listing, like even before, like as they're going on a listing appointment is kind of what my thought process was for there. So, and should ops be going on the listing appointment? I know we kind of talked about that too. So it is interesting thinking about the role of a listing manager, because I feel like a lot of people on this call, like people wear a lot of different hats. Some days they're the listing manager, some days they're the this manager, some days they're the transaction coordinator. I feel like there's so many different like names for these types of roles. Dawn on our team is an agent partner. So I feel like it's like a catch-all. Sorry, Dawn, but it's like a catch-all. And so it can be mostly on the listing side, but also helping to support on the buying side as well. So if anybody on this call needs a description for that, to like an actual job description, I can send over what we have put together too. So chaos director, I love that. I love that. And I love when somebody said about like herding cats. I'll never forget, right when I first started here, I took a training through Ops Boss, and one of the first videos that they show are cats in a basket, and like they like are jumping out of the basket, and then there's like somebody like scooping them up, putting them back in, and then one jumps out over here, and they're like, this is what it's like to be in operations. I'm like, oh, okay, perfect. At least I have an understanding of it.
There's an occasional squirrel in there too.
Yes. Yeah.
Ooh, Amanda.
Yes. Oh, what was that? I am just putting my email in here. Kim, if you want to email me, I can share what I have for our like retreats. I don't have a specific playbook around retreats. I have like playbook examples. I'm sorry. I have retreat examples. So every retreat or team advance that our team has ever done, we have a specific like booklet that we print off and give to the team. We have a slide deck that we go through, an outline, but it's different every single time depending on what we determine the purpose of our team advance is. Meaning like at the end of this advance or this retreat, if it's 4 hours, if it's 8 hours, if it's 2 hours, what's the point of it? What's the purpose? What do I want people to get out of this at the end of it? How do I want them to feel when they walk out of the door? What do I want them to learn in this time period? Like really honing in on what are the most important pieces of doing this and how do we get there? So
Perfect. Thank you.
yes, totally. And yes, to Kathleen's point, if you're not doing an advance as a team, there is the business planning clinic on the 16th. This is such a great opportunity to go through all the different things that go into it to put together your plan for 2025. So she sounds awesome. Like I loved listening to her at the team meeting yesterday. So nice. Well, thank you for submitting some questions on the listing manager side. I mean, it's good to know that that's stuff that people want to learn more about. If there's other topics that would be valuable or that are like on your heart, but you don't want to bring it up, I'm happy to bring it up like anonymously like that if there's other things that would be helpful. So feel free to reach out to me. So, or Kathleen too, if that's easier. So